Alright, it's video time. I have the deck on tapped out, and there should be a link in the description. And other than that, I'm going to jump right into some games, but I will also bring up the list the way that I usually do by showing you the image of it online at the end of the video. So I tried to make a video recently, and there was a sound issue, so hopefully this works out fine. I'm just going to hit the last few about the last 10 games from the 5th through the 6th, and I won't worry about the rest of these anyway. However, having said that, there is Magic 2020 is released online, and there are a few cards that could be good. One of them looks pretty interesting to me. It is a blue 1 instant stifle effect, so it counters an activated or triggered ability, but it also can act as a counterspell for legends. So seems custom made for Commander, where you're gonna try, if you're lucky, for 2 mana, you're gonna sinkhole somebody on their first turn, or very early in the game, and it'll act as a semi-time walk. But if you drop mid to late game, where countering a fetch land is not really that exciting, the fact that it can counter their commander is fantastic. I mean, at any time, if it's not useful for you to stifle an effect, the problem with stifle is it's so narrow, but this card will allow you to do something useful with it, and it's at 2 mana. A 2 mana hard counter seems pretty good to me, so I definitely want to give it a try. Of course, there's also cards. There's also that blue 1 counterspell that acts as a stifle plus a hard counter for anything. But at 3 mana, it's a lot less interesting. At 2, you're starting to get me interested for sure, so I want to give that a try. Anyway, we'll start with Lord Duke 1 on the 5th, and we'll see how this game goes. But keep an eye out for that in 2020. For now, I do not have that card in the deck, so I will, the list, but regardless, I do try to keep the list current. Anyway, my opponent is playing Shall I Voice of Plenty on CEDH, or excuse me, on Tapped Out. And I have a risky keep where I realize that any land will allow me to get a Chromatic Lantern. Of course, blue would be the best. My opponent's got a potentially very fast start with Priest. I decided to take that risk because of how many turns I had before it would be obvious to my opponent that I had a problem. And fortunately, I'm paid off with this blue mana right on time. So next turn I get a Talisman, so I crypt into Talisman and run out of Breya. I get to draw a card. My opponent played a Fabulus, so because my Breya is larger than the largest creature on the board, I get to draw 1. Anyway, my opponent is now able to tap enough mana to play a Murray's Wake, but still missing a land drop, so has potentially 2, 4, what is that, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana on the board. -1 is 8. But I'm able to play Breya, or I played Breya last turn. I'm able to play Jace, bounce the Selvala, kill the Priest, and sit on her mana, dropping my opponent from roughly 8 mana to possibly even 10 if they'd played an untapped land, to anywhere from 4 to 6 this turn. My opponent has exactly 4 and no play, so I'm going to go ahead and Jace. I believe this game is going to bug out at some point. Play a Chromatic Lantern, go get a Merchant Scroll, or use a Merchant Scroll to go get a mana drain. And play a Karn, and make a Construct and pass, so that I have lethal next turn. My opponent plays a Fierce Empath, fetching Vorinclex, gets a land, runs out a Captain Sisay, which would actually be the better card as a commander than Shall. Much bigger threat. And I believe this is the turn we're going to bug out, but what happens here is I end up, I'm going to just pause because it's going to bug. What happens here is I treachery one of the creatures, ponder into, I don't even remember if I played a ponder actually. I think I treachery one of the creatures, and then Tezzeret shackles the other creature, make a construct with Karn, smash in with the team, and then sack something to deal 3 to my opponent with Breya and finish him off. Alright, so we'll move into game 2, which was against MTG Cello 123. But that was definitely a lethal turn. Anyway, opponent's playing Risk the Redeemed, definitely not the green-white commander of choice. I think that thing's absolutely terrible. That card is literally draw, Skull Clamp, or lose most of the time. It's just so bad. Anyway, I'm the one who drew Skull Clamp, so my opponent is probably going to be the one who loses. I decided to kill this Legion's Landing here, even though I might be able to keep my opponent from ever attacking with 3 creatures. But I kill it because I didn't see a Sylvan Library come down or a Skull Clamp right there. And I figure with my clamp, I'll be able to dig pretty deep and find more solutions to cards like that going forward. So at this point, I just want to I just wanted to get the landing off the board. So because I don't want it's mana suppression basically. My opponent, I play Breya, my opponent kills it in response, and I go ahead and just play a Dark Confidant pass. Opponent sends in here, so I go ahead and take the trade with Riz, and my opponent has a combat trick, so I got a card out of their hand for a Thopter, which is pretty cool. I go ahead and get a Shackles down and steal their commander and clamp it. Opponent replays their commander. Decides not to send in with the team. A little bit sketchy here. And I think this game might bug out as well. Oh yeah, it bugs out here. Yeah, it gets a little... Okay, yeah, it gets a little... Okay, maybe it didn't bug out. I just fast-forwarded too much. So, anyway, I have my opponent in a bind where I continuously clamp their vampires and am able to offer them a trade if potentially, or just skull clamp it and draw 2 cards. Once I get low on life, though, at some point in there, I equip a Jitte and start attacking. And basically, what ends up happening is my opponent here, they can trade here, and and then I can shoot their vampires, and they're in a spot where I'll be able to always shrink something down with Jitte, small enough to steal it with shackles, and then clamp and kill it and draw cards. So anything my opponent plays is just going to feed my game plan and not theirs. So they had, like, over the course of those turns, a bunch of funky tricks like Rootborn defenses and Druid's Deliverance, but these are not tricks that are going to actually win any games ever. So they didn't win that one either. All right, anyway, game 2, MTG Cello 1-2-3 is also playing the same deck. And I've got an insane start. Opponent leads off with their extraordinarily, unbelievably fair commander. Way too fair, like not even threatening, right? Anyway, I, on the other hand, have something a little different going on. So I decided not to copy the Thran Dynamo there. Instead, I Imperial Seal, and the reason is my opponent, even if they have a removal here, they can't stop this turn, which is Gilded Lotus, into copy. Into Tezzeret, I believe. And then I pump for a bunch of mana, play a Breya, and Vindicate one of their lands, sack and kill their creature, and pass. So this is my turn 2. I've only played 1 land the entire game, but on my second turn, I've killed their land and their commander, played Tezzeret. I can produce 3/6 plus Tezzeret, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 mana, plus 3 more if I have an artifact. So up to 21 mana in play on turn 2 using a single land. Opponent scoops, and I think they were right too, because if they didn't, note Tezzeret ultimates 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 points of damage, and we just win that way. So it was a turn 3 kill on board, which is pretty cool. Anyway, Pedari. Anyway, playing Feather the Redeemed, and I have a definite keep. So I run it out this way so that I can mana leak. The bad thing about this hand is I'm holding Necro, which wants me to have a life total, and I'm going to be doing a lot of damage to myself here. That's one of the bad things. The second bad thing about this hand is that right now I want 1 more blue than I've got and 2 more black than I've got, and that Windswept Heath will not get me an Underground Sea, so I'm going to have to be very cautious here. I decided to let the Fellwar Stone hit. And draw a Dark Confidant, so I go for Confidant. Pass. I'm not sacking the Windswept Heath to play him because I'm still not sure exactly, do I want to get black or do I want to get blue? And if I need to go get blue here and cast Mana Leak, then, and I decide I do because my life total is a resource, then I needed to, I was going to use the Confluence anyway, basically. All right, so I'm going to untap the Vault here. And the reason is, although I have a Remand in my hand, I also have Force of Negation. My opponent's more than likely just going to replay their commander here, and then I can deal with the commander with other cards in my hand. Instead, they play some kind of card that functions similar to their commander. It triggers when they target the creature. Alright, obviously, please tell me we're not bugged again. Well, I don't, I'm sorry, I don't remember how that game ended, so I do know that I remember that I quickly got a Breya down, and then I played Necro, and then my opponent conceded, but I thought what I drew on that turn was something like a Signet and a land, so I was able to play Breya and then immediately kill their creature with the Force of Will type effect ready to go, and then on the next turn I found another land to go get Breya, to go get Necro into play, and then my opponent just gave up. Anyhow, Nienerson52 decides not to play me, and I'm super bummed because look at how awesome this hand. This hand looks so absolutely fun to play. What a delight. Of course, first turn Wayfarer with Force of Will backup would be a blast if my opponent doesn't have Strip Mine or Wasteland, in which case, not so much. But still, I don't know. I was excited about the hand. Anyway, jumps into a second game with me with their Feather the Redeemed deck. Apparently, I don't know if this is a new release or something, but this seems to be the rage online. And I decided to keep a somewhat risky keep, but it's got Mana Leak, which is pretty nice. Alright, so I'm going to brainstorm. I get a blue-black land because I have a blue-white talisman, and I brainstorm into a blue-red land, which is just perfect. And I decide that if I develop my mana, I'm better off than if I worry about their commander. And they might not play it, like they didn't right there. So I'm so much stronger for having gone with the talisman into top plan. So I go ahead and top there, and then Narset. This ensures that if I don't have a hit that I want, Narset can definitely at least take the top. My opponent has their commander and then this Fiery Charm to give it haste. Fiery Charm will then return to my opponent's hand. So they killed my Planeswalker, so I decided to kill their commander with a mana source, which is a little bit unfortunate having to do that, but I make one mistake though. I let this guy hit. I should have Force of Willed this thing. Gave him a land and a target for another haste spell. But see, I didn't see Reckless Charge last time. I saw Fiery Charge, and I figured, well, if it comes in haste as a 1/2, I don't have to sweat that. So because my guy will take the hit, and then on the next turn I can produce blockers. All right, so I'm able to counter their commander once. They then play a Locket and go face, which is nice in the sense that nothing really happened that turn. And I find Demonic Tutor, so I can go ahead and fix my mana situation somewhat. A Soul Ring. I'm still missing the white that I need. Opponent's holding 5 cards plus their commander, so they play their commander. I let it go because I have a Treachery in hand, which I'm now going to run out. And having the mana for the Treachery was part of the reason why I went and got the Soul Ring. I anticipated their commander would come down. The thing is, I'm really trying not to Force the Will if I can help it, because I don't want to 2-for-1 myself, and it's such a powerful effect. But my opponent plays Stave Off to disenchant the Treachery, giving their commander pro blue, making the Treachery fall off. I have to Force the Will there, and then they decide to quit at that point. I'm suspecting that at this point my opponent's holding a hand of a bunch of nonsense like Reckless Charge and whatever that other haste card was, which is all really cute if you have your commander, and all pretty much garbage if you have a 1/2 with no abilities, relevant abilities. So, my opponent could try to do something here, but on the next turn, obviously, I get a Fairy down and it is super over. And realizing that, they give up. So, game against Sigus here. Sigus is playing Verena Lich Queen, which is interesting. And I noticed as I was playing that the new mulligan rules are back in effect, which helps this deck, I think, a little bit. So anyway, I have a keep here. It's a little bit of a slow hand, but it picks up as soon as I DT into a crypt and get a talisman down. Suddenly it's a fast hand. I'm going to go ahead and top, and on my opponent's turn, choosing to keep for myself a Crucible to go with that Bloodstained Mire. And then I go ahead and Brainstorm and Mire into a top activation. Is that correct? I did do a top activation here, but oh, okay, so it just ended pretty quickly. So what happened is I did the top activation, then I played Duretti, and I think I just killed their creature. I can't remember what I saw at the top. Then my opponent's turn, they played a land, they tap 4 mana, and they cast a 4 mana artifact, the one that taps for 2 color. It's a Sisay's Ring that it's very similar to that. It taps for 2 colors, but you can put 2 mana in it and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. And then on my turn, I play Dark Fade and steal it, and then they quit, if I remember correctly. So then the opponent jumps in for a second round, probably. Sorry, I'm surely pursuing a different outcome, hoping that it was more of a fluke. I noticed their mana was a little bit tough there. Anyway, same commander. And if you're going to be playing those colors, Zur is the commander that you want. It's a totally insane one. I decided I'm going to run out Dark Confidant because opponent's got double blue, but one of them's tapped. So now's the time. And pays off. It sticks. My opponent can't kill it. They go for Chromatic Lantern. I decided to let them have it. They run a Dark Salvation to remove Dark Confidant, ironically. I try to provide my Dark Confidant with some Dark Salvation. Yeah, I like that. Anyway, when I counter it, my opponent realizes that they're just losing to me drawing 2 cards per turn and having kept up with me on mana, but way behind on cards. They pack it in. I was most likely going to play a land and just pass so that I could Mystical Teachings for a mana drain in response to whatever my opponent did here. Except that wouldn't have worked because I would have needed a 3rd artifact. So no, I guess I wouldn't have done that. I would have probably played something like Urza or Karn here. Anyway, good stuff there. And then I've got this game against Powerlow 777, as well as one against Emperor Fabulus, and that'll be 10 for 10. All right, an incredible hand. Gollum Tireless Pilgrim is interesting because it's a colorless commander that lets you play all 5 colors by the commander rules, thanks to the 5 colors of mana in the text. And I go first turn Colosseum, Soul Ring, and take damage on the off chance I might find a second blue on turn 2, and I do. And not only that, but I can protect my Jace with a Force of Negation, which is gross. When it runs out of Ponder, I'm not going to force that. Not with a Fact or Fiction. If I can help it, that's Fact or Fiction's like 3 to 5 cards, so 2 to 5. Anyway, it's too good. So I'm going to Jace up again, shuffle away the nonsense. Play yet another threat that I can protect, and draw some more cards. Alright. My opponent, for their turn, does find a Mana Crypt, which I allow, plays a nice Crown Scepter, which I allow, puts a Brainstorm on it, I guess to keep up with Jace, and I'm going to go ahead and Jace myself. Tuck their Isochron Scepter and Brainstorm. Without even brainstorming in response, my opponent just gives up. So major mistakes were made by the opponent over there, not noticing Teferi in play with the Isochron Scepter. But they could have at least used it in response to see if they should give up, perhaps. Or maybe they realize this board is just way too tight. If they hadn't, of course, I have the play of Disenchanting, Mana Crypt, and Vindicating one of their lands And I think that'd be the nail in the coffin anyway. So, lastly is Emperor Fabulus. And did you see how I was able to mulligan to 7 cards multiple times and then just give up the rest? So new mulligan in effect. I'm playing against Omnath, Locus of the Royal. Doesn't look great to me. But anyway, I've got another fantastic start, and I go ahead and just teachings into Enlightened Tutor. ET, end of turn for Necro because I had an Urborg in hand, play a Necro, draw 7 cards, slam down a Winter Orb, and boom, my opponent concedes. It's turn 3, and they are totally locked out of the game. And I thought that was a nice finisher for the opponent. So here's where the deck is. I don't know where the cut would be for that 2-cost counterspell, that Stifle effect that also counters legendary things. Because Planeswalkers are legendary, it should also deal with those, I believe. I'd have to read if it says legendary card or if it says legendary creature, because then it wouldn't work on Planeswalkers. But at any rate, still don't know where the cut is, but it would be nice to find another spot and try that card out. So that's all I've got this time. Hopefully the sound worked out. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed your 4th of July if you celebrate it. And I'll see you next time.